The rain had a way of falling differently that night. It wasn't just the weather. It was a punishment, a cleansing, and a kind of mercy all in one. The last train screeched into the small, wind-beaten station at Willow Creek, a Desheim, forgotten corner of the country where only ghosts and runaways seemed to pass through anymore. When the train hissed to a stop, the platform lights flickered weakly, casting trembling shadows across the worn wooden boards. From one of the cars stepped a young woman, drenched, trembling, clutching a threadbare blanket. Inside that blanket was the faint, muffled cry of a baby. Her eyes darted left and right, wide with terror and confusion. No one was waiting for her. No one ever had been. Her name, she didn't have one anymore. The world had taken that from her piece by piece. She had been born on the wrong side of everything, the wrong family, the wrong faith, the wrong dreams. Her parents had cast her out when she'd refused the man they'd chosen for her. And the man she did choose, he'd promised her the world, then vanished with her dignity, her savings, and her heart, leaving her with a child and no place to call home. She stumbled off the platform, her boots squelching in the mud, and sat beneath the wooden awning where rainwater dripped from every corner. The baby stirred, letting out a small cry. The sound pierced her heart. She held the child close, whispering, "Shh, it's okay, baby. Mama's here." But even she didn't believe her own words. There was no home, no money, no hope. Only a nameless girl in a soaked dress and a hungry baby in her arms. A faint whistle echoed through the night, the train pulling away. She turned her head to watch it disappear into the darkness, taking with it every last chance she thought she had. And then silence, the kind that makes your heart remember how alone you really are. She rocked the baby gently, her lips trembling. "What do I do now?" she whispered to the wind. A few distant lights blinked on the horizon, the kind that belonged to ranches scattered across the prairie. The town was small. Nobody here knew her, and maybe that was her only blessing. She gathered her courage and began to walk, barefoot now, because her shoes had given up hours ago. The muddy road was cold beneath her feet, but she didn't stop. Each step was a prayer, though she'd stopped believing in those long ago. At the edge of town, the rain thinned to a mist. A single building glowed faintly ahead. Holloway's Diner. The open sign buzzed in the window, flickering like it wasn't sure if it wanted to stay alive either. Inside, the smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. The few people inside, a pair of truckers, an old widow, and a teenage waitress, all looked up when she entered. The girl froze in the doorway, soaked and shivering. Her hair clung to her face. The baby whimpered again. Can I just get something warm?" she whispered. The waitress blinked. "Honey, you look like you've been through hell. You got money?" The girl's silence was her answer. The waitress sighed, glancing at the old man behind the counter. "She ain't got nothing, Earl." The man rubbed his jaw. "Ain't running no charity here, Maggie." The girl's knees buckled slightly, exhaustion winning. The baby began to cry louder now, a thin, desperate sound. "Please," she murmured. "Just milk. For her, please." The man's jaw softened, but before he could answer, the diner door creaked open again. A tall figure stepped in from the storm, hat dripping, boots heavy with mud. His face was hidden beneath the brim of a weather-beaten cowboy hat, his shoulders broad, his silence louder than thunder. He carried the kind of stillness that made people look twice and think once. Every eye in the diner turned toward him. He didn't say a word. He simply looked, first at the crying woman, then at the baby in her arms. Something flickered in his eyes, not pity, not curiosity, but something deeper, recognition. He walked past her, to the counter, and in that low, gravel-smooth voice that made even silence listen, he said, "Get her some soup and milk for the baby." The room went still. The waitress blinked. You paying for her, Jack?" He slid a few bills onto the counter. "I said what I said." The girl stared at him, unsure whether to thank him or fear him. He didn't look at her, just took off his hat, brushed off the rain, and sat in the corner booth. The waitress hurried to prepare the food. The girl sat near the door, afraid to bring her mud and shame further into the room. When the bowl of soup came, steam rising in gentle curls, she could hardly lift the spoon. Her hands trembled. The baby's small lips latched greedily onto the bottle, soft noises filling the space between them. When she finished, she turned toward the man. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. I'll find a way to pay you back." He looked up slowly, eyes steady beneath that wide hat. "Ain't charity," he said, "just decent." She didn't know what to say. "Where you headed?" he asked. She hesitated. "Nowhere, I guess." "You from somewhere?"
She looked down.
"Not anymore." He nodded once. "That makes two of us." The silence stretched again. Not awkward, just heavy with things neither of them were saying. Outside, thunder rolled over the prairie. The waitress called from the counter, "Jack, you still working out at the Grayson Ranch?" He gave a small nod. "Well, maybe the girl could—" Before she could finish, the girl stood up. "No, I don't need pity." Jack's gaze met hers. "Ain't pity. It's work." She opened her mouth to argue, but the baby whimpered again, and all the fight drained from her shoulders. He stood, adjusted his hat, and said quietly, "Come on. Place got a roof and warm milk. That's a better start than you got now." She hesitated. Her whole life, every time she'd trusted someone, she'd been broken for it. And now here was this stranger, silent, hard, unreadable, offering something she hadn't felt in months, safety. She took a breath. "I don't even know your name." "Jack," he said simply. "Jack Carter." She clutched the baby tighter. I don't really have one anymore." He studied her for a long moment, then turned toward the door. "Then we'll figure that out when the sun comes up." The road to the Grayson Ranch wound through miles of dark prairie, the rain softening into mist. Jack's truck rumbled along the dirt track, headlights slicing through fog. The girl sat in the passenger seat, blanket-wrapped baby asleep in her arms. Every bump in the road felt like it might wake her little one, and every second in silence made her want to fill it, but she didn't dare. Finally, she asked softly, "Why did you help me?" He didn't look at her. "Seemed like you needed it." "That simple?" He shrugged. "Sometimes simple's enough." She looked down at the baby. "Her name's Hope," she whispered. He gave a small nod. "Pretty name." She smiled faintly, the first time in weeks. "Yeah, it's all I had left to give her." When they reached the ranch, dawn was beginning to bruise the sky, soft pinks and grays rolling over the hills. The land stretched wide and endless, fenced by time and solitude. The barn stood tall against the rising light, and the main house, old, quiet but strong, waited on the hill like it had seen everything and was still standing anyway. He parked the truck. "You can stay in the bunkhouse till we figure something out." She blinked. You're really letting us stay?" He opened the door, tipping his hat. "You and the baby need a dry roof. I've got more rooms than people." Her eyes filled. "Thank you." He paused, looking at her for a moment. "Don't thank me yet. Mornings come early here." And with that he walked away into the dawn mist, boots crunching against the gravel, disappearing toward the barn. She stood there, baby in arms, feeling something she hadn't felt since the world turned its back on her. Safe. She looked up at the ranch house, at the sky clearing above, and whispered, "Maybe. Maybe this is where hope begins again." The first few days passed like a dream she was afraid to wake from. Jack spoke little, worked hard, and never asked questions. He was up before dawn, out in the fields before the sun touched the fences. She'd watch him from the kitchen window, moving through the mist like a ghost carved out of silence and old scars. The housekeeper, Mrs. Grayson, a woman in her 60s with a heart like fresh bread, helped the girl settle in. "You can use the guest room," she said kindly. "And if Jack says you can stay, that's good enough for me." He don't talk much, but he don't lie either. The girl helped where she could, cleaning, cooking, caring for the baby. Slowly, the ranch began to feel less like a stopover and more like a heartbeat. But every night, as she lay awake, listening to the baby's soft breathing, she wondered who Jack really was. Why did a man who spoke so little and looked so broken still choose to help a stranger? One evening she found him mending a fence at sunset. "Jack," she called softly. He turned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Why do you live out here all alone?" He was quiet for a long time before saying, "Lost people don't always need company. They just need peace." She nodded slowly. "Maybe that's what I was looking for too." He gave her a rare, faint smile, small but real. But peace never lasts forever. On the 7th night, a black pickup rolled up the ranch road. The baby started crying before the engine even cut. Jack stepped onto the porch, hand resting near the holster at his side. The man who got out wore a smirk and a suit that didn't fit the land. "Well, well," he said, "ain't this something?" The girl froze in the doorway. Her heart stopped. She knew that voice. "Hello, sweetheart," the man said. "Miss me?" Jack's eyes narrowed. The girl whispered, trembling, "That's him, the man who left me." The man grinned. "Didn't expect you to end up with a cowboy babysitter." Jack's jaw tightened. "You should leave." The man chuckled. "I'm just here for what's mine, the baby. And maybe the girl if she begs nice." Jack took one slow step forward, his shadow stretching long across the porch. "You heard me." The smirk faded. "You think you can stop me, cowboy?" Jack's voice was low even, dangerous. "I don't think I know." The man's eyes darted between them, between the trembling girl, clutching her child, and the silent rancher who looked like he'd already buried many ghosts. Finally he scoffed, spat on the dirt and muttered, "This ain't over." When his truck disappeared into the darkness, the girl collapsed to her knees, shaking. Jack caught her before she hit the floor. "It's okay," he murmured, for the first time touching her hand. "He ain't coming back." Tears streamed down her face. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't even know me." He looked at her, really looked, and said quietly, "Maybe I don't need to. Maybe I just know what it's like to be left behind." That night, as she held her baby close and stared at the faint glow of the lamp, something shifted. The man who had once been her nightmare was gone, and in his place, this quiet, broken cowboy had stood up for her like she was worth something again. For the first time, she believed maybe she was. Outside, the prairie wind whispered against the windows, soft and steady. And though she didn't know what tomorrow would bring, one thing was certain: she wasn't nameless anymore. Because when dawn came, Jack Carter would look at her, smile, that rare smile, and say softly, "You got a name now. We'll start with hope and work our way up from there."